All right, guys, welcome back to Crossing Swords, and it's a happy new year from me. But as always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm pleased to be able to say that it is no longer 2020. We are done with 2020. However, 2021 has not started brilliantly.
You know what I feel like we should be listening to at the moment? Have you seen South Park the movie? Big Gay
Yeah.
Bombs are flying. People are dying. I feel like that's what should be going on.
It's not been a good start. We sort of had a really tentative first couple of days. It was like, okay, it's not too bad. Not too bad.
Dipping our toes in, thinking
it's manageable.
It might be all right.
Manageable. And then, like halfway through the first week, it was like, bang! Here we go. We're off. What can we do? Let's kill a bunch of Brits. Let's take down the whole US system.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's just tear the world apart. Let's fucking go nuts.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't understand what happened in the US last night. I know there was some protests going on.
I do.
But when I say I don't understand how people are that thick.
Well, this is the thing. So I said to you last night, like, whenever I watch anything like that, it reminds me just how dumb some people are in the world, like how many idiots there are in this world. And the thing about Trump is the danger of him talking about things. And so we'll sort of briefly sum up what happened in a minute for those of you that had your head in a rock or whatever. But his followers aren't followers. They're fanatics. They're extremists. You know, if someone you or I followed said something like, we're not going to let the other side take away democracy, that's what they're trying to do, and we won't let it happen, we'll fight for it. We'd go in a pub and we'd go, yeah, it's a bloody joke that they're trying to take away our democracy, isn't it? It's an absolute con. And we'd sit and we'd stall and we'd get angry. These guys go straight to their gun cabinets, jump in the back of their pickup trucks and decide to start storming buildings.
The thing is, as I said to you last night, I have a lack of sympathy now for people being misinformed or completely uninformed, because all the information's at our fingertips. And I just don't understand even how stupid people go from listening to Trump saying, I didn't lose this election, but he did, and then go, well, the only option here is this go storm the Capitol. I don't know how.
Well, in fairness, the build-up was that they were meeting in the Capitol building to certify the election results.
Yeah.
To finally say, look, it's over. Your lawyers had a good go. They did the best they could with absolutely nothing. But it's done. We're going to just say that Biden's won and he can come in a couple of weeks. And Trump, like, even on the morning of the rally, of the protests, literally did a speech outside the front of the Capitol building saying, we're not going to let the left-wing Democrats take away our democracy. That's what they're trying to do. We're not going to let that. We're going to fight for it. And he sort of tweeted and encouraged everyone in the days building up to it for everyone to turn up and protest.
Yeah.
He said, turn up and protest. Don't let it happen. But, you know, you have to understand, and it's interesting. I actually watched a video of a Trump supporter, and he's like proper Trump supporter, and he said, and Donald Trump was like, you know, when he tweeted about let's have peace, please, and let's look after our men and women in blue that are serving Capitol Hill. And this guy was like, Trump can't be that dumb. He said, Trump must have known. He said, when he stands there and yells at us people, and he's telling us that our democracy is being taken away, he must have known. He knew what was going to happen. And it's like, that's a kind of like semi-self-aware Trump supporter.
Yeah, I guess so. I think, like, look, he definitely has a certain level of responsibility towards it, but for people to take to violence is a different thing. And I know he was saying don't let them take your democracy, and it's probably one of the main things on this planet that can inspire people to aggression. But I don't know, in a world or it's in a country, I suppose, in America, that has as much as they do, to instantly go to violence, I find quite concerning. And I can't quite wrap my head around it.
They haven't instantly gone to violence. I mean, you know, what's happened is Trump's tried to fight it legally at every turn, and quite understandably, because he's got no evidence, he's been shut down. And what he's come out and he's saying is the system doesn't work. It's trying to shut us out. They're trying to keep terrorists at bay. It's like, you've got to know what's going to happen, because even if, it only takes a small handful of people, and that's all it was ultimately in the grand scheme of things. to go, fuck that. I'm an American, you know, and like literally everyone they said, I saw a great report by Robert Moore on ITV, and he was asking a few people, he was like, what does storming the building do? And all of them said the same thing. They went, we're good law-abiding citizens, we're good, you know, tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, and we were driven to this by the left. And he was like, okay, but what does storming the building do? They don't know. They're just acting.
Yeah, they're just acting. But the thing is, I would say the same thing about them as I say about, like, when you get a suicide bomber or anyone who's extreme. They don't actually believe in what they're espousing or what they claim to be fighting for. They're just people that want to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say they're necessarily Trump supporters. They probably do support him, but that's
No,
not
but
why
when
they stormed
you're
the Capitol last night. They stormed the Capitol because they wanted to storm the Capitol. There's a lot
when
of
your
Trump supporters
demographic,
out there, and like if every Trump supporter had gone and stormed the Capitol last night, I'd probably agree with you that it's Trump fanatics and that he has a certain level of responsibility. But I think those people were just looking for an excuse to blow up, and Donald Trump gave it to them.
I said to you last night when it happened, and I truly believe this, if Trump had have come out in November and said, do you know what, we fought a good race, we got the highest turnout of voters in such a long time, and we really gave it a shot, but you know what, we lost, good luck to President-elect Joe Biden, this wouldn't have happened. And I strongly believe that.
You very well could be right, but again, I would still say I don't think that necessarily disproves my thoughts that these people aren't really Trump supporters. They're just nutters that are looking for an excuse to get their
But
guns
equally
out.
then, let's like make a comparison to football. You know, in for example, when you're making a tackle in the box or something, and you're challenging for the ball, you know, don't put your arms on the bloke, because as soon as you put your arms on the bloke, even if you've done nothing wrong, you're giving the referee an excuse. You're giving him an excuse to go down, and you're giving the referee an excuse to make a decision. It's like it's sort of like that with the Trump thing. Is he knows that some of his hardcore supporters are fanatics, whether they're actually his supporters or whether they just want to scrap, like you say. And I think like you, they just want to make trouble. But whatever they are, currently they're aligned to him. So you've got to make sure that you don't give anyone an excuse to do anything like that.
No, absolutely. He shouldn't have. It smacks of desperation and patheticness that since losing the election, all he's done is it, and even afterwards, so this morning, when he's accepted the result of the Senate ratifying the election, he still said, I don't agree with the result. So he's still not learnt from what's happened last night.
No, and it's dangerous. And we said years ago how dangerous it was, and it's just starting to come to fruition. And it's always been, I know it's always been happening, but you know, the politicians were still inside, the senators were still inside the building.
Yeah. But I do wonder what the end goal was for those people. So were they going to shoot people? Like what was the aim?
That's the other thing
I asked them what.
Yeah, no, and they didn't know. They don't know.
You know,
but it
ended up with someone dying.
But I remember saying to you though, how much worse would it have been in terms of fatalities and casualties if it had been a Black Lives Matter protest?
Oh God, yeah. if it was black people with guns taking the Capitol, we both know.
The fact is, there's
black
a great
people without guns taking the Capitol. We know how that would have ended up.
There's a great shot of the guy. I mean, there was a couple guys that did. There's a great shot of a guy sitting in the chair of the speaker, you know, with his phone and shouting into the mic, going, you know, Trump won the election, Trump won the election, and you're like, can we just say what it is? You know, call a spade a spade. A black man would have never got that far. He'd have been shot at the door.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean? He'd have been rushed, and I mean, it's just, well, not right. I suppose they were overwhelmed, but yeah, no, it's, and the National Guard, the mayor.
I'd love to say that's not true, but unfortunately, it is.
And make of this what you will. You know, they knew there was rumblings of that there were going to be a lot of people turning up to try and stop the hearing, because the other thing Trump had done is he'd implied that they weren't just meeting to certify the vote, that basically that the Senate had the power to overturn it if they voted it down.
Okay, yeah, which is...
And that's not something, it's all but a formality, this meeting.
Yeah.
They don't actually have, it's sort of like the Queen in our country, they don't actually have any power in that situation.
No, the decision's
But
already been made.
Trump had heavily implied, and he may have even said it, I've got no evidence of that, so I'm not saying that, but he definitely heavily implied that they could overturn the decision. They knew there was going to be a lot of people turning up, and the mayor of Capitol Hill, the district, he actually called the day before. He made a request for the National Guard to be sent in.
Yeah,
and it was denied.
That's
So
the
make
thing.
it that way.
He did want what happened yesterday.
It seems it.
Part of me,
It certainly seems it.
I mean, I said when he lost, I'm pretty certain he's going to run again in 4 years' time, or even less. It'll be less than that. That it all starts again. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he runs again.
Yeah, but the country. It's not just him. All of the Republicans who decided to ride his tailwind and the hype that he produced, but they're enabling him, and they enabled this danger.
Well, I suppose there is this sort of image of America that it's all like, woohoo, we're America, man, guns, tits, fanny. Do you know what I mean? Like, and Trump screams from the rooftops.
Also, there's no other.
Like,
I might be
guns, tits, fanny.
I might be wrong, but I can't picture in my mind, and maybe this is just me being really harsh on the Americans because of what happened the other night, but I can't think of a single country in the world that chants their own name. Yeah, outside of like sporting occasions.
Yeah, but to be fair to them, it sort of works like USA.
Yeah, it's got a nice rhythm to it.
Yeah, where you can't go good. Look, it sounds a bit
well,
shit.
we do at football. But what about
shit.
what about Great Britain or Panama or there's loads of like three-syllable,
Don't shit on Panama.
Triple-syllabic. I'm quite the opposite. I'm saying Panama they're dodgy as fuck in terms of all the money stuff that we know came out like in 10, 15 years ago. But listen, they're cool. They gave us a hat. It's a cool hat, and they don't chant their own name or storm their own buildings. And if they do, it's because there's a genuine threat to democracy, not some nuthead who's just gone, I don't like losing.
Painted orange.
No, but yeah, I mean, like we entirely condemn it, as does. But this is the thing, as do most people, and Trump's come out and said, don't be violent, but at the same time, like, do you remember the tweets during the Black Lives Matter stuff? And he was properly condemning them.
Yeah, absolutely. They were black.
And it was like, exactly, but it's like, this is an attack on democracy itself. And you're like, no, they were right to protest. They shouldn't have done it violently, but...
Like, you look at the Houses of Parliament, there's no fucking way any group of people are getting in there. There's men with guns, there's fences, there's barricades.
Oh, well, this is the thing. There's a story, and I'm not that clued up on it, so don't start quoting me on it. This is one of those weird things that I sort of know, but I don't know how I know it or where I know it. But someone got into the Houses of Parliament and managed to get hold of, because there was they did have some weaponry in the Houses of Parliament, and but the weaponry was like mace, and someone got hold of mace, and someone from the public got in and maced a politician, and there was this huge uproar of people going, why have we got mace in the Houses of Parliament? It's the Houses of Parliament. There shouldn't be anything like that in there. These guys are guns. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's a different culture, it's a different country, but you have to go back to the days of the English Civil War and the Revolution and Cromwell coming in before we even went, right, one thing is, I know we all carry guns and we all have swords and that, but that stays outside. Yeah, when we're in here, there is no room for that.
Yeah, although I watched a funny video, it's completely off topic, but because you mentioned the swords having to be in another room, there was a video of this guy going around London breaking ancient laws that are still valid today.
Yeah.
One of them is bearing arms in the Houses of Parliament and wearing armour, like you're not allowed to wear armour. But he managed to get into Parliament wearing armour and carrying a fake sword. And the guards at the front were like, we've never had this happen before. We don't know what to do. And they checked the sword, and obviously it was foam and fake and whatever. And they were just like, well, yeah, he's just a bit of a weirdo. Let him in, like. And like the punishment is death. Still, like the punishment for that crime is still death.
Yeah, it would just never be executed. It would just be a.
But yeah, mad.
No, but it is mad. But it's a weird time, man. And I mean, we're like not even a week in at this point. Or I suppose at this point, if you guys are listening to us, we're a week or 2 weeks in. But
yeah,
Christ, what does the rest of 2021 have?
I think, to be honest, the saddest thing for me with COVID is how much more it's made me dislike people in general, or like the general public. Like, it's got to a point where, like, if you go to a road crossing, and it happens nearly every time I go to one now, there'll be some fucker on the other side that will refuse to press the button to cross and will wait for you to do it. So they're fine for you to
I've seen that.
Life.
I've been that.
And it's like, is this what we've come to? Like, genuinely, like this.
Do you know what? Just
pedantic and pathetic.
Going back to the stormings and that, it's just occurred to me that we're sort of living in a world a little bit like so one of the dystopian novels of the age of the 20th century was Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Yeah.
And in it, one of the things about sort of controlling the populace was that in terms of information, the idea that there was such an overload of information, true and false, that no one knew what was real.
Yeah.
And that's eerily accurate to what's happened today in terms of social media and the way that it is so easy to spread anything with no verification. People aren't disengaging. They're just taking it up and running with it. And you've got, people who believe that the earth is flat and won't take any other answer for it. People who don't believe in vaccines. People who die. And I'm not saying they didn't exist before the age of the internet and social media, but they certainly didn't have such a presence as they do now.
No, definitely. I think the internet in general has given a platform to the fringes of society, and they've now grown in size. But I still like to believe that in general, en masse, the majority of us can still see sense and reason.
Yeah, but I have to say, oh, please.
No, it's all right. No, it sort of plays into a lot of stuff I've been looking into recently. Someone told me to have a look at Sam Harris. And I don't know if you know who he is. He's an intellectual, and he's like a foremost expert on sort of pretty much all the
one of us.
Absolutely,
one of our people.
He very much is. He says a lot of controversial stuff, mainly about Islam, and basically that he's convinced in a lot of ways that Islam could conceivably try and take over the world. And that we should be essentially afraid of a particular type of Muslims who, your extremists and stuff like that. And
you should just as a precursor, by the way, I just want to throw out there, you should be afraid of all extremists. Treat them all the same.
Yeah, quite. But one of the things I was sort of having a debate with someone about was in terms of, I said, well, I wouldn't be afraid of Islam more than any other religion because Christianity and Catholicism was just as extreme and violent as Islam.
Yeah, you look at the Crusades.
But as a society is allowed to develop and have free ideas, those things change. I mean, Catholicism is adapting. The Pope is, the current Pope anyway, is a bit more progressive. And I'd like to think if we stopped bombing the Middle East and allowed them to have their own free societies, they might stop hating us as much and develop and change as we have. So I think it's that sort of argument. I think the more the more you allow people free will, yeah, you're always going to have extremists. You're not going to eliminate that, but I'd like to believe en masse people will still see sense and reason.
You said that made me think of one of my favourite jokes. It's not one that makes me laugh every time. It's not one of those jokes that you laugh at, but it's one of those ones that you go, "That is brilliant, well done." And it's Louis C.K. And I know, he's very controversial at the moment. Well, he's always controversial, but, no more so in the last couple of years. But he did a joke and he went, yeah, no, I like all religions and whatever. I'm, talking about how he's going to raise a kid and whatever. He's like, but, let's face it, Christianity won. And everyone laughs. And he's like, well, it's true. Christianity won. And they're like, you don't believe me? Let me ask you this. What year is it? And I was just like, that. It's fucking brilliant.
No, it's very clever.
Yeah, no, that was quite good. But anyway, yeah, that was like a completely tangential thing. I think I personally, I've sort of like reached a point, and I've been edging towards it over the last like 6 months to a year. Like, I would definitely say the pandemic kind of edged me towards it, or began my journey edging towards it, where I just don't endorse social media anymore. And I am making an active, and this is a very new thing, by the way, and I'm making a very active a pledge to be actively conscious of using social media less and less, to the point that in the coming months or years, however long it takes, I will only be on social media as a presence for the pod.
That's fair enough. I think social media is fine as long as you know what you're getting out of it and what you use it for. So I use it to keep an eye on certain celebrities I like, to watch silly videos.
Yeah, I think
I don't use it as a source of information. I think for me, my relationship with social media is probably exactly what it should be. It's a recreational place, and one for, like you say, a presence for the pod.
I think for me, it's not that I don't see the purpose of it as useful, but I don't endorse it anymore, because I think it's grown. You know, it's always been unregulated, but it's grown to the point where it's actually now, and we've seen, you know, physical proof of that last night in the storming of the Capitol building, for fuck's sake, that it is a danger. It is a danger to people. It is a danger to democracy. It's a danger to you know, everyone. Physical harm can be done through spreading information on social media. I mean, physical harm is being done. The pandemic wouldn't be nearly as bad if there wasn't as much misinformation floating around, being shared around as it is on social media.
I absolutely agree with you. I do agree on that. But then I think that's where you've got to have more accountability. I don't think you should be allowed to hide behind anonymity. And I think there should be some sort of system in place where there's actual fact checking involved, and you can't just post whatever you want. So no, I do agree with that.
Yeah, no, and anyway, that's just my sort of side thing. And I think, and notice how I did it. I said that I'm going to actively try and reduce. I can't make any promises. I can't put a date on it. All I'm going to do is try. Whereas someone like the politicians of today, like you look at Boris or something, would have just come out and gone, I will never use social media again. Completely wholeheartedly committed. And then later that day, using social media and going, actually, I think you misinterpreted what I was saying. Like, just to illustrate the point that we're at with the world and politics in particular. But also, guys, Happy New Year!
Happy New
Year! Yay!
2021.
So it's going to be there, and this is our second year. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
In a few months. I mean, not just yet, but. So we've been going, it feels like we've been going longer. I know for you guys it probably feels like we've been going forever. Too long, perhaps.
No, I don't think so. What I'm always pleased to see is that obviously when we stop recording like we did over the Christmas period, you do see the numbers tail off a little bit. But as soon as we start posting regularly again, the numbers pick up to a steady level. And I always find that quite encouraging.
Encouraging. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But, you know, I don't want to say enjoy it. Endure it. Let's endure 2021 together.
I think what I will say to people is what I say to people about in general is just be nice to each other. And
yeah, always. I know. Yeah, you're definitely.
You know, just we're all having a shit year, 2 years, 3, however long this goes on for. So just try and be understanding and nice to each other. That's all I would say.
Always stretch first.
Yes, that always helps. A good stretching always helps. and on that note, I think that's
Crossing Swords says stretch first. Yeah.
Crossing Swords, stretch. But guys, as always, you can find us on all the socials. It'll be somewhere along here, there. We don't know. No one knows.
There. Who knows?
It's at Swords Crossing on Twitter, at Crossing Swords on Facebook, and at Crossing Swords _podcast on Insta, and we have an email address which is crossingswords19@gmail.com.
Can I just say, by the way, I am genuinely, because of how much you fucked it up when we first started doing the pod, whenever we have a bit of a break in recording, I always expect you to fuck it up again. I always expect you to go back to it and be like, it's at, no, it's at cross, no, at store. No, someone else do it.
Yeah, Jake, you take over. I'm done.
You take over.
Just run off crying.
Kudos, my man, in continuing your good form.
As you know, I aim to please.
I know, and do you know what? I would say 80% of the time you deliver. At
And
least.
you know what? I'll take 80%. That's a better conversion rate than most.
And do you know what? It's not just a better conversion rate, it's a better ending.
It's always a happy ending.
It's 80% of the time it's a happy ending.
No, for me,
Much
it's
like the pod.
always a happy ending.
So you're even happy when you're crying.
Always,
It's good to know.
always happy when I'm crying. That's a different story altogether. We can talk about that in episode 69.
Episode different. And guys, tell us, that is coming up. Tell us your funny stories. Tell us them anonymously. Tell us them, your friend of a friend.
Yeah, we want some funny sex stories, guys.
We want sex stories, guys. We want sex stories. We want some wank fodder.
Dirty. I want to hear about what happened when you were listening to some Marvin Gaye.
I want to be sitting here preparing for the pod, knocking one out, reading your stories. That's the truth. That's the whole truth.
We just want some free porn. That's all it is.
We just want free porn. That's all we want. We will not pay for porn. And Crossing Swords, we get our listeners to give it to us for free. That should have been Labour's pledge. Maybe they'd have won the general election. Free porn for all.
That's be the name of the episode, isn't it? I would storm Parliament for some free
I would storm Parliament for free porn.
And on that note,
I agree.
Guys,
I agree.
We will see you next time. Stay safe and love you, lads.
Peace out, guys.